What's that?
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Electric. And get ready for the batteries. Yeah.
You guys ready? All right, we'll call the meeting to order, 7:05, we'll start with the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we're gonna review the sign-in sheet. Rebecca's third. You have something about a manufactured building at 604 Crisscross. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I thought that was at the end.
Nope, you're right up front. Get it over with.
Okay.
You have to sit through the meeting being nervous.
Well, that's all right. I don't like public speaking, so I'm gonna fumble, so.
You're good. There's just a few of us here.
Okay, about 604 Crisscross Road. I would like to know why the property is being allowed to expand when in 2020 the zoning meeting shot down the proposal. At that meeting, I had played audio, what it sounds like to live next to the property. I can play you a minute solid today if you'd like to hear it. It's just constant beeping. The previous owners had a small engine repair shop, and several of us can't understand how it's been allowed to morph into a manufacturing plant. If you're not familiar with the property, they make docks.
Oh, yes.
Okay,
Now I am. I wasn't, but I know where you're
Okay.
being, right alongside the new development.
correct. And this is in a residential neighborhood. So I would love if someone could please tell me first, how this is allowed, and second, how it's allowed to continue to grow. They've increased their footprint by about, I'm no architect, so I'm guessing about 20 to 30% in the back of the building. They've added tons and tons and tons of dirt and stone. They've created embankments where there were none, and essentially the parking lot, similar to what they had asked for approval for back in 2020. They've added huge concrete blocks or footers, I'm not sure what they're called, that are being put into place by excavators. They've seeded those areas, and to fresh eyes, it may appear as some of them have been there all along, but they're not. It seems to, I think it's been done in phases. The owner did stop by and tell us that they were going to bring in some dirt and stone since their equipment gets stuck in the mud. and this is by far more than some dirt and stone. And I'm also being told that there's going to be shipping containers that are going to be going in next. Aside from the constant equipment beeping, there's now an engine or a motor noise that can be kicked on around 6:15 in the morning, some days. If you were to listen to a cement truck idle while the cement is mixing, that's what it sounds like. So during their whole workday, that's going, whether the machines are going back and forth beeping like they do. So I don't know about you, but I don't like hearing that all day long, in and out. And they're on a hill, so everything is magnified down to the residential houses. The back of the property, which seems to be where all the activity is, that's our vantage point. It's filled with fabricated docks, vehicles, trailers, all the stuff you would expect to find in a manufacturing plant, not a residential neighborhood. Can't have conversations with the mailman, the neighbor, a phone call while working. I've called Jen at the office. She can vouch for the noise in the background when I call. I've left my home to try and continue to work because it's difficult. Even with my windows and doors closed, I can still hear the noise. Then they're hiring too, so that should speak volumes as to the continued growth that is going to be going on there. So in closing, I'd like to invite you all to breakfast or even afternoon tea so you can see what it's like to live with this in our backyard. In a residential neighborhood where a small engine repair shop has been allowed to be turned into what I'm calling a manufacturing plant. So I would absolutely love if you could please tell me why and why. Thank you.
Jeff, that's something for you.
I was at the property for extended period of time, I guess it was last Thursday, I believe, to see what was going on. I talked to the people inside, the guys that were spreading stone out back, and she's right that they have talked about putting 2 shipping containers in the back. And that's where these concrete blocks have been brought in. Is the property owner here? Okay, that's Mr. Fitzgerald, okay. They provided me with a drawing of the existing building and what they have done as far as increased impervious cover, the stone. At the very minimum, I've received nothing for stormwater, I've received nothing for zoning permits. I'm familiar with the ordinance, I did read it the decision from the zoning hearing. I read that last week, and it talks about, I guess, the increases that they were denied at the zoning hearing. So I need to balance that decision with what I see on this paper here. I just did not have time Friday or today to address that issue. Is there anything that you can address this issue with?
I mean, we're definitely, they added stone, there's no question about that. They felt like the amount of stone that they added was under the amount that we were allowed to cover. I mean, depending on how you read the book, stone, in one area, stone's impervious, in another area, it's
Stone has
not.
always been impervious coverage here.
And as far as shipping containers, we also felt like shipping containers were deemed portable storage.
No, it's an accessory structure. Requires a zoning permit at bare minimum.
So, so I approached the tenants and I told them they need to, just like you did, they need to apply for, they stopped and they need to apply for permits for those 2 things.
So you'll follow up, Jeff?
Yes. Yep. Yeah, I need to look at the decision again and look at what they've done here to compute the differences and what they've increased their coverage to. They were asking for a variance, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, it was a large addition to the existing building. There was also an increase they needed to go over on the allowable impervious. So they were denied both those to go over those coverages. So as long as they're underneath the building percentage coverage that's allowed, and also the impervious coverage that's allowed, then we'll address it through stormwater and a zoning permit.
And what about the noise?
Well, I'm not sure what the other noise is that she's referring to. Backup beepers are something that is a requirement of OSHA. We can't go in and tell them that they have to remove the backup beepers or turn them off from their vehicles. I don't think we want that on our backs. As far as the other noise that's there, I've been told, and maybe you can verify this, that the business operates 7:30 to 4:30. Okay. Again, that's what I've been told. I'm not there at 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm not there at 6 o'clock at night. But what time does it typically shut down?
That varies. But they've been there on weekends too.
Okay.
We'll follow up, Jeff, and get back to us.
Yep.
So we can do to resolve this.
I can,
It is in the middle of residential.
Which is my main concern. Like, no one wants to live near this. I could not sell my house and get what, I mean, that's what we were all saying at the 2020 meeting. Why is it allowed?
what was it? It was a concern, I don't know if this board remembers when they came in, wanting, because I was very hesitant about issuing a zoning permit at that time. But it was addressed that the building was previously used in a like manner, and so that's where we took it.
We'll
Yeah,
follow
that
up,
was- Yep.
follow up and get back to us, see where we're at.
Yeah, I'll let you know as far as where we're at, coverages and that type of thing.
I will comment, and I will apologize. The noise has been excessive lately for two reasons. One, the machines moving dirt and moving gravel. And we did just have the entire exterior of the building painted. So there was a scissor lift there. So every time the scissor lift goes up and down, there was excessive beeping. I will apologize for that. It's an OSHA thing. We couldn't do anything about it. I do apologize for the excess noise. And now the building is done being painted now. But they will, next week, they're gonna go up and recoat the roof. Now, the lift shouldn't be operated near as much, because once they'll get up on the roof, they'll be doing their work on the roof. I mean, obviously, they'll come up and down from time to time,
Sure.
but that roof project is expected to take between 7 and 10 business days. So there will be some disturbance of that.
Did they sprayed the building, I would imagine?
They sprayed the building, yeah.
So that's gonna increase the volume of noise there as well.
I will gladly, address times with them, and if we can come to some sort of an understanding of, work absolutely positively cannot start before, I would say 7:30, it should be a reasonable time.
Well, there is times put on activities that would create noise outside in the zoning ordinance. It's typically used for construction sites when guys want to show up in July and start putting roofs on at 5:30 in the morning. So I'm not sure, without looking at 7:30 or 8, what that time is. I think it's important for them, if they are starting at 7, keep the doors closed and not be running any equipment outside, until a little bit later.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to address that with them. I'm more than happy to accommodate as much as I can.
In addition to that, the zoning ordinance does provide a decibel level. We do not have a decibel meter. Everybody runs around and uses one on their phone, and that's not admissible. So that's kind of useless. So
And when, the dirt that they removed to lay the stone, we did create a berm of sorts, and our intent is, so the berm's probably 4 foot high, if I was gonna guess. And our intent was to build that berm and then plant trees on top of that berm to, obviously trees take time to grow.
Right.
We're not gonna buy 2 foot trees, we're gonna try and buy, decent sized trees and put on there to not only give a visual buffer, but to hopefully give a little more of a sound buffer also.
Is there any, without looking back at my pictures, trees planted on the property line to create a visual buffer?
There are
Between
none planted on the property line at this point.
Okay, that,
Even if there were, it wouldn't assist because they are up here and we're all down here in the back of the property. They're
higher.
higher elevation than we are.
well, if you're lower, then you should be looking up, and the trees would probably help. If you were
But
high looking down.
the building, it can't be blocked by
Oh, I'm
a
not
tree
saying the
unless
building,
okay.
I'm not saying block the building,
Okay.
but the activities that are happening outside and the storage of their product.
Like, the trees would have to be like 20 foot tall for us not to see that.
Well, if they're planted right in front of the trees, you would think that would help a little bit.
Possibly.
I'm more than happy to do what I can. I mean, at this point, they're there, they're doing what they're allowed to do. I will do what I can within reason, even a little bit beyond reason, to try and help.
I appreciate that.
You know,
But I think my main question is why is it allowed?
it was a pre-existing and non-conforming use.
It was pre-existing, was some of the issue. To change it when it was allowed, to change it back to not being allowed is difficult to do. And that was part of the zoning hearing. I can't remember the full details, but I know that was one of the considerations. So Jeff will look into it, see where we're at, make sure they're following what we did approve, and then we'll get back to you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for coming. All right, Jonathan Ebert, Southview storm-related flooding. You have questions or comments, or you want to hear what we're going to discuss about cleanup?
Yeah, I'd like to know, well, also, I was sent notice of violation, which I feel that it was a direct consolation prize to investigation from Kraft. I was issued 11 photos, at least a third of them aren't even of my property. There are all kinds of other photos of what I called was the storm related stuff. So I called Kraft and nobody, well, their secretary responded back then the day I called, but I still didn't get clarification as far as the violation of what they want. So.
Because Jeff can help you with that too. at some point.
I'm not, I probably signed the letter.
You didn't sign it, Glenn did.
Okay, so,
And Glenn wasn't the guy that was out. Frank was.
okay. So Frank would have taken the pictures. I think I did see pictures. Was it debris and
I
things?
didn't see any.
Okay, maybe I'm looking at old pictures.
But you'll follow up
I
with
will,
Glenn.
I will.
Glenn will get to you and then.
Glenn was on vacation
Last week.
So they'll
So
follow
she
up
told
with
me that. They also dated the photos August 3rd. I know for a fact they weren't out August 3rd. They were out on July 20th.
We can provide date stamped photographs.
Yeah, I know. She already told me. She put them in the system. She goes, oh yeah, you're right. We were out Friday, July 28th. But that's not what your photos are dated in the violation. Then you send the violation regular mail and you also send it certified mail. Well, that certified mail is on 13th Street in Reading, and I have no physical ability to go pick it up. I don't understand why you guys certified mail.
That's what we're required to do.
So I just think that's a waste.
Well, that's what we're required to do for proof of delivery.
We'll get to some of the flooding issues too there at the end of the, yeah, they'll get in touch with you,
I mean,
whatever it is.
I'm not trying to be difficult. I need understanding of what they want. And, for notice a violation of weeds is what the violation is for.
Okay. Again,
I think it was just whatever.
If there's a violation and they're out, they have probably complaint based.
yeah, we're not driving around looking.
Yeah.
You tell me that all the time, but, I know from the vantage point of the photos and all of that, I know where the complaint came from. I know what it's about.
But if somebody complains, we have to follow up, no matter who it is. If it's a pissed off neighbor or whatever, that's still, I'm not saying it is, I'm just saying, we have that all the time. And then we have to
multiple
Follow up.
things with that neighbor.
So. All right. You can comment more about the cleanup when we get to it. Don't cover it. Approval of the minutes from June 12th.
I think they're pretty accurate, they didn't find any problems, that's good. I'll make a motion to approve. I'll second.
All in favor? Code enforcement from June 2023. Anything hot topic?
We had a hearing, at McCardle's, they've got 30 days to get the property cleaned up. 330 Mine, the judge again recused herself. We're waiting to hear what judge that will be in front of. The last time, I believe it went to the judge in Oley. We're hoping that it goes there as well. 1877 Silver Springs, I was out there this Saturday. We've done an inspection at the property and there's quite a bit of damage to the home, so we have placarded that as uninhabitable until they can have a structural engineer come in, which the insurance company will be bringing in to take care of. So find out more about that later. And, 11 Farmers Drive, we have that on the agenda for later, so that's the only thing I had to talk about.
All right. SEO report for June. Now, do we know where we're at with the company?
They're finishing up District 2. There's a few that are left over that are finally staying constant, getting some.
Is that for this year?
Yes. Yeah, I'm sorry, last year. No, this year, sorry.
So when do they have it done by? Who's left?
There's about 15 of them left. I know he sent out notices to them,
Okay,
so we're,
updated this at the next meeting. Police report, there we go.
Thank you. Hi, Tom Folcom, Patrol Sergeant at Fleetwood, been about 10 years now. I'll go over some of our activity for July. In July, our officers patrolled 2,594 miles at 221 hours specific patrol hours, 117 hours investigating incidents, which were 189 incidents, 21 crash investigations. They issued 14 traffic citations, 1 non-traffic criminal citation, 16 hours of traffic checks, 25 hours of paperwork, 30 additional vehicle stops, 64 hours of follow-up investigations or criminal investigations, 8 hours of court time. Some of the notable things for July, we had on July 3rd on a recklessly endangering incident where we responded to Maiden Creek Road and Richmond Road for a report of someone shining a green laser in the driver's eyes, including myself. It was one of the officers. That night, I was able to contact the state police to get a helicopter out. We got another department's K9 out. We didn't find the individuals that night. However, we subsequently made an arrest of a female who lives in the area. She didn't admit to all the incidents, a handful of them. So the case isn't closed at this point. As far as additional cases, our detective will be trying to do additional interviews for that. It can be super dangerous to get hit in the face with a laser while you're driving down Main Creek Road or something. So that's where we're at with that. We investigated on July 31st a criminal trespass case involving the individuals were caught on a trail cam, probably in the same area involved with the green laser incidents. We're still working on that. Charges are could be pending in that. We still have interviews to do. District 3, we responded on July 4th to a fight at the Sheets involving two men fighting in the lot. They took off by the time our officers got there. It was the day they had the $1.77 special, and traffic was a nightmare everywhere. I live in Shillington, and I know the Sheets in that area was bonkers. I just don't see how waiting in line for 4 hours to save 20 cents is worth it, or whatever they're saying. So anyway, that caused a problem everywhere, in how your departments were responding everywhere. July 6th, a road rage and harassment incident. We responded to Speedway. Road rage occurred in the roundabout. Victim allegedly was punched by another male during the altercation. We eventually found out who that was. The citations were issued for the accident because the victim didn't want to press charges on the assault. Retail Fest at Sheets, July 11th. And we're still waiting on more videotape evidence. That case is open. July 29th, I was patrolling. I monitored the roundabout a lot. It was, I believe, around 5 p.m. A lot of failure to yields in the roundabout at that time. I noticed a van driving fast into the roundabout, drove up into the cement median, took out a yield sign, and continued to drive around the roundabout while he was staring at me, and pulled him over right there. He was DUI. He was at 5 o'clock. He was at .258. He lived a few houses from there. Anyway, District 4, July 7th, we had a homicide in a residential neighborhood there, Middletown Road. So an arrest has been made in that. A husband and wife, and so he's in jail and hopefully will remain there. And July 25th, we had trespass call for juveniles walking on railroad tracks. They were stopped and ID'd and given warnings. It was their first offense. July 28th, the vehicle theft. We responded to DECA for report of a motorcycle stolen from their lots. We got video surveillance showing several individuals entering the property in another vehicle at approximately 11:30 a.m. and the motorcycle was stolen. Our detectives working on it, and hopefully we'll be able to get that case solved. On a personnel matter, part-time officer Matt Catadella has been deployed again in the military. He'll be gone for approximately 9 months. Our chief is actively looking for part-time officers and accepting resumes. So if anyone knows anyone interested, it's a nationwide problem right now. Recruitment for the police is extremely difficult right now because nobody wants to do the job. But we're working on trying to find preferably experienced officers for part-time to help out. So if anyone knows anyone, let us know. And as far as equipment, we had a 2024 Explorer was totaled by the insurance company due to water flood damage. Our replacement cruiser has been located and it's secured for when the insurance company takes care of that. Does anyone have any questions about any particular instance that I can give some information about, or any comments about any problems, or whether it's speeding in certain areas or other stuff? Speeding is a factor. Just to note that accident we talked about, 1877. I did assist in that accident. I was called out to the scene that night, and one of the worst accidents I've seen in 36 years, which was speed related, very high speed related. So it was an unfortunate thing. So to hit a house like that and cause that kind of damage to an F-450 Super Duty truck, so it's amazing. So hopefully the house can be fixed and be moved back in. So. Any questions or comments about it?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to head to another meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Virginville Fire Company report. Seeing that, I don't have any questions. They're asking for approval to assist the Neutral Fire Company Saturday, the 16th from 2 to 8 with traffic control. I don't have an issue up down the fire company, so I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Motion to approve the truck payment. I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Olin Town Fire Company report. Anything to add?
Only that, the new engine in Jersey, it will be delivered, 25th of this month. It'll be at our station. We're doing final inspection on Friday, 25th in Ephrata.
Okay. Okay, 11 Farmers Drive, zoning hearing. Jeff, you wanna,
Okay,
is that you?
yes. So this is a property, again, along Farmers Drive, that the applicant is proposing a storage use of cubes, I believe, that they would deliver to properties, and they would be loaded and brought back here and moved out, that type of thing, as trucks are available. It is a permitted use as a special exception. There are some things that we feel are missing from the application concerning section 80410, which spells out conditions for storage and wholesale businesses. The applicant must demonstrate compliance with those provisions via testimony at the hearing. There is going to be some, when the applicant approached me first about it, I did discuss with him that land development would be required for it. We haven't heard anything from that yet. I think he wants to just try and get zoning relief. If we can get zoning relief, they'll go ahead with the land development plan. The other item, there was a snafu. They had listed an attorney as their representation on the application. We had contacted the attorney's office, and they do not and never have represented the applicant. However, Jen just did provide me with a note from the applicant that they have retained Sheridan Associates, Goodstock Road. So they do have representation for the hearing. So that is scheduled for the end of this month. Not sure which time it is.
24th.
This would be the vacant lot in the back that's next to the detention basin.
And not to interfere with the retention basis, correct?
Correct.
Is it long-term storage of the cubes on site?
I believe it goes off-site.
Because I'm looking at the plan, showing a lot of cubes there, if they're only there in transit.
Yeah, the sketch plan itself just lacked detail in general to be able to determine really a lot of, as Jeff said, the compliance with zoning or other. I mean, there's one of the things we noted when we saw it is there's an overhead wire through the property, but it doesn't note that or how that might affect what they're proposing either.
And if it's just storage on the property to move in and out, it's configured like it be stored and used right on the property, in my opinion.
I don't believe anybody's coming onto the property
We gotta make sure
to
that
access.
because that's what it looks like it's set up for.
No, because
You have access to every door and you have 2 aisles. It just, I'm not saying that's the purpose that they're requesting, but on the drawing, it looks like
yeah,
that's the intent.
because I had originally talked to them, that the lot's gonna have to be paved and we'll have to have, accessible areas. And he said, no, nobody will be coming to the.
And maybe
lots
it's
on
just
site.
to access and to load them on the truck.
Mhm.
So they're not gonna come and go load it there. They're just gonna go to another road,
Correct.
be rented as a storage.
Correct,
They're
so
not
they
gonna
would
bring-
deliver it to your property, you would load it, it would come back here, and I don't know if you're moving.
It
they
says
would
moving
deliver.
in storage.
So if it's being delivered to your new address, for you to unload at that location.
So they're not going to have residential property just for storage or rental storage. They're to be loaded and moved to another property. I'm just trying to get.
That's the way I'm understanding it, it's been very sketchy as far as the amount of information we have got.
Yeah, it's actually, they're moving them from one place to the other. That's what they're for, moving. That's what it says on the website.
I know we just did that with my son. He had the pod for 5 days, we had to get it loaded. They took it back to their yard where it stayed temporarily, and then until they got it on a truck to take the cover out.
Is there, in the sketch plan, is there fencing around the whole thing?
There's no details of anything like that,
I'd just be
which is something
concerned
that
about
needs,
security.
which needs to happen with the land development plan.
There might be fences.
Looks like fencing.
Yeah, it does look as X's with the lines.
Yeah.
It looks
Proposed,
like
says
it.
proposed fence.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it does look like it.
Yeah, it goes to zoning hearing, right?
Yes,
So I'd have a bunch of questions if there's gonna be truck traffic and all that's what's allowed. Because if they're coming in and out, I don't see no parking for trucks. Or if they're just storing these modules. And it's very peculiar that they listed an attorney that they don't have. That's a big red flag.
well, that's what we thought.
I guess that's my comment on that. They just have to investigate, make sure everything is valid.
Yeah, no.
Anything else?
That's all I have on that.
EMC report, Josh, do you wanna?
Yeah. So a lot of things have been happening since July. We had the great flood of July 9th, which prompted a response from me. Amongst just staying awake most of the evening, that night I was out doing windshield surveys till about 2:30 in the morning. Removed the barricades that were out on 662 because the creek had rescinded back finally, and opened up 662 that night as well. All the paperwork for that storm is submitted and out of my hands now. It's in the county's hands. I haven't heard a single update yet. It could take months, weeks, even up to a year until we hear absolutely anything that comes out from any of that. Most of the times for flooding, they usually issue the small business grants or loans. I don't know what the plan is. I know the state was trying for individual assistance due to the fact that most of the properties that were affected were private residents and not public residents. I don't know where we stand on with the 2 drainage culverts that the township was affected by, one on Southview and one on Timothy Drive. That one on Timothy Drive, the road actually eroded away on the right side. And then later on, Robbie found that at the pump station, that road became a massive speed bump. So that one was added in and submitted as well. So I have no idea where we stand with any of that. Generally, I don't hear anything unless it populates from Brian Gottschall or Donnie Swope, or Phil Spence now, who is the new Donnie Swope. So that's pretty much it for and we had a debrief after the storm. I went and met with Robbie, Jeff, and his deputies and assistants, and Mark Richards and his deputy and assistant. We did it at Wallentown Fire Company. We came up with a list of equipment that we were looking at, kind of trying to move forward to assist both fire departments. Because we all know Virginville really doesn't get hit with much flooding unless it's the Saucony likes to crest, or the Maiden Creek, sorry. But Wallentown's area usually gets hit pretty hard with flooding to the point where Virginville comes down in the system. We came up with a list that I think Robbie and I would like to sit down with you guys and kind of go over at some point. Recently, Kutztown Ambulance, big media articles about those. While I was in the process of updating the emergency action plan and the resource guide, Kutztown Ambulance went out of business essentially. I talked with Jen about recommendations. The best one for the township would be let Lifeline take over the entire township. Right now, Kutztown Borough and Maxatawny Township are going to use Topton Ambulance. They're still fine tuning the details on where they're going to stage the second truck for that end. So the mutual aid will change a little bit. When 911's called for an ambulance, at least in Richmond, you'll probably see a Topton truck, if not the secondary truck out of Lifeline. And in general, I'm just continuously updating all the resource guides. Like I said, the ambulance folding kind of threw a hitch pin and everything. So I had to call John Shook with Lifeline and figure out what their course of action is going to be, so I can update it accordingly.
I did talk to them, they said they would take care of the township.
Okay.
Do we need to reach out to them and have a discussion as from the township?
Probably. I know Maxatawny and Kutztown Borough both did resolutions.
Do you have a number or a contact there Jen can reach out and we can do a resolution?
Yeah. I could get you a phone number.
Yeah, if you can get Jen and get that set up and just ask them if they'll cover the whole township. My recollection that they covered 90% or 95% of this town.
Yeah, I don't know, Haven Road, and that's around by the area that Kutztown would have came in that area. Whoever's closer,
Yeah.
go by mileage.
They're looking to temporarily staff the Topton ambulance at the Maxatawny Township building. It's 8 minutes to get to Osgood's from there, and it's 8 minutes from the Fleetwood station, so it's really no different.
Jen, you should look if we have an existing resolution appointing ambulance services in the township. We might have done that.
I think we did, but Lifeline took over the Fleetwood.
So if you can find out, we can modify that or rotate.
Sure.
I think when the Lifeline came in, we had some action.
I think we're good. All right, thank you, Josh. Grande open space. The open space at Grande, I'm just gonna bring the public up to speed. The open space that Grande has, similar to Crisscross, surrounds the business there. Grande has it. I'm under the impression, although we don't have it documented, it might have been, I think it was pre my time. When everything was built, the open space was gonna be dedicated to the Fleetwood School District. They had agreed to take it and do, more soccer fields. Since then, I don't think anything, I think it was verbal. I don't think nobody can find anything in writing. From my understanding, the Fleetwood, the current administration at the Fleetwood School District wants no parts of it. So it leaves Rondi with, I think, a little dilemma on trying to dedicate it, but it leaves the township here with a little bit of opportunity to turn that into maybe some recreational area park, baseball fields. The Fleetwood Baseball Association had reached out wanting to do something with part of the land, but not all of it. I had reached out to Fleetwood Borough to maybe do some joint grants, to get a park there with some permanent bathrooms, and they seem very much on board to at least help with the grants and be, like a joint grant always helps when two municipalities are working together. I did reach out. Our biggest concern is the maintenance of it. I did reach out to the Fleetwood School District asking them to, at a minimum, just take care of the sidewalks in the winter, simply for the fact that they had requested the sidewalks. That was part of the agreement when Rondi was putting in the development plans, and we don't have any sidewalk clearing equipment in the township. We don't have any sidewalks now except for in that development. They have not been willing to help with any of that. They say they have enough to do and they don't want the liability, which I can partially understand. I would just like a little cooperation from them, but it's not their problem, I guess. And there's nothing in writing that they can find that they agreed to take it over. So I think what we discussed here is, as a board in the past, is maybe trying to get some baseball fields, some use for recreation use. We don't have any parks at all in Richmond Township. And I think with some grants, we could start off a piece at a time, maybe developing a baseball field. And since then, the Soccer Association had asked, they had not known we were talking to the Fleetwood Baseball Association about another baseball field, but they could use some soccer space too. So I don't know what the next step is if we get an actual architect to look at it, lay something out and see what we can do with it. If that's the next step, I think there's some interest all the way around to put it to good use. And I think I'm hoping Grande, with wanting to have to or would liking to dedicate it to someone other than themselves, would be willing to help with something.
Yeah.
Would be my guess.
Ultimately, that was their goal, was to dedicate whatever spaces needed to be dedicated and sell the lots, and then their name wouldn't be on anything. And to the best of my knowledge, they were going to reach out to the school district to pursue where those agreements stood, or if anybody was interested. I've just been waiting to hear back from them and I've heard nothing, so I assume they've had the same decision that everybody else came to.
Yeah, I met with the superintendent, and there's nothing that they can find that ever was agreed to in writing. And it's a different administration now, different superintendent.
So they have not been pushing hard on, they were trying to get the dedication right at the end of last year for several reasons. They kind of backed off of that. They still haven't been pushing this year, and we're getting closer to the deadline for dedication. So they're either going to be pushing really hard soon, but we did say to them we wanted to see resolution with this open space before we start moving to the dedication final escrow releases. So I'm actually, if there's anything we need to do, I am meeting with them on a completely separate topic tomorrow. If we want to start having that conversation, or at least setting up a meeting to have that conversation.
Who's got the liquid fuels deadline? Is it before or after our September meeting?
It would be after. I think it's the end of September.
What's left on their checklist for development outside the dedication?
Not a whole lot, because they hadn't gotten the streetlights up yet, but I think that's done at this point. They still had, there was 2 lights that were kind of questionable on the main drive that they had to address. There was some, I think, dedication documents that they had to clean up.
What about final pave coat?
They got in there and did the final coat last year. And I think that's I think they're good there. They're gonna, I can say this without them saying it themselves. They're gonna say, well, it's been down a year, we haven't gone into maintenance, but it's been 12 months since we paved it. Well, we didn't jump into any kind of dedication. We run into this often, keep moving things forward, but I know that'll be part of the request later. But, yeah, they don't have a lot left.
Those sinkhole issues, they all.
Last I saw it, it didn't open back up. Yeah. There was the main pipe coming into their basin there that had a pretty decent sinkhole under it, but I haven't seen anything since. So, to the architecture part of it, I think they did when they made their as-built drawing as part of the requirement for the land development. They showed that the footprint was adequate for 2 soccer fields, I think, side by side. I don't know if it was a full-size regulation soccer field or what, but I think that was kind of the intent was to show that you could fit those there. And then there was the second open space to the other side of that Rhino Drive that was intended for a parking area, if ever it was gonna happen. They even have that included in the permitting, so it's, that's part of what they were designing for.
So what's the next step about a conceptual drawing, or must we, vote to move forward and at least explore that possibility, or reach out to them to see if they're, is it possible? I don't know why they wouldn't be.
Yeah.
They got to dedicate it, or they would probably like to dedicate it to somebody.
You said there was some kind of a drawing, but that was not a design drawing.
No, I think that was just part of what they showed on the as-built drawing to demonstrate that the intent was to have playing fields there and it was large enough to do it. But right now it's just a big open field, flat level field, more or less. Yeah, I'd imagine probably before the township puts any money into the grants or starts looking that direction. I mean, if you want to explore it, there's really no cost there, but before any money's spent towards the plans or that kind of thing, just reach out to Grande to make sure that they're in support of it or on board, because technically they still own it, probably.
Well, maybe
Good
that's
idea.
it for meeting with them. Is that something that we like to just approach?
Yeah, why don't you do our communications for us and see what their intent is and if they're willing to do something.
I'll bring it up, see what dates they want to throw out and let you aware of when we'll meet, if anybody else wants to tag along for that, but I think any interest in getting rid of the land, I know
Well, that's what I
they've
was gonna
expressed.
say, is the strategy should be that we're gonna help you unload this land and you ought to contribute to the improvement of the land.
Mhm.
Not to interject, but I'm interjecting. Was Grande still planning on doing a playground? 'Cause in that one area, they decided not to?
No, that was not part, they were gonna dedicate all the land.
No, but in the beginning when they had their drawings, like years and years ago. it was
Yeah, no,
all to the
they
left.
have no intent, they wanna get rid of that. So that's what we're
I was
thinking.
thinking, well, if they were still gonna do that, then maybe they would dump funds into
Well,
what you're talking
that's,
about.
that's our hope, that they'll be motivated to help us with the playground or whatever to get
Because I
rid
know
of.
some people were excited about that
Yeah,
idea
to get,
going in there.
and I think it would be, I mean, we don't have any, I said that before. We always, the long-term maintenance is always a challenge here. We don't wanna get ourselves over, but I think it would be a good idea, would benefit, it would benefit couple things in my mind. It would benefit the Fleetwood Baseball Association, have a little bit of field, maybe some playground, maybe fix up the parking over there where the soccer fields are, that we have joint decent parking, and maybe a permanent bathroom instead of the job junks. Something that would be good for the residents that are using the soccer fields already. So it's just preliminary, but I think we could get the funds together. I think there's plenty of grants out there jointly with the municipality and the borough that we could offset. And we do have a little bit of funds yet from the COVID issue that we would like to put to good use also. So I think if that's our next step, and then maybe thoughts of maybe an architect or somebody to draw this.
Get someone to do some drawings of renderings.
So renderings, so conceptual. This is what we're thinking, this would fit for a park and playground, the maximum, and we wouldn't have to do it all at once. If we start with one area with the final outcome, and get the residents on board.
I'd stick with the job, Johnny's. I know it's not appealing, but every public work project I've been involved in, the improved toilets become a problem. They're vandalized, they're destroyed, it just doesn't work. It's unfortunate, but that's been consistently my experience.
Well, maybe that's not part of it then. But it's the sewer lines right there, but I
Pretty
guess,
close to
So that's go where it's going.
yeah, it's a shame though. And it's expensive. It's expensive, I know it's expensive. But that's just my thought, so if you wanna set something up,
Yeah.
Ronnie, to at least meet,
Yeah, I'll reach out to them.
and let me know, because I would like to be part of that.
Yeah, and that's, we can open it to whoever else may need to be
Yeah.
there if it makes
And
sense.
open the doors, we'll see what we can do.
Okay, now you're up, Scott. Solar farm.
Solar farm. So we had the meeting the day after that storm came through. We had them stop work simply because it was just not reasonable for them to continue when it was. But they did continue work once it dried up. At that time, that's when we started pressing the issues. As I said, we already reached out to them about questions, concerns with the soils. Once we started pressing that issue, we realized that they themselves were backing off of some of what the plan was and were gonna ask for a little relief. Because that was tied to the planning, the zoning for that property is when we issued the stop work order. And this is just to give everybody a little general update to what occurred in the past couple weeks. That plan, and I kind of explained it to the contractors because they had no idea on the previous plan approval portion of it that the township had conditions tied to that for zoning that improved the stormwater. And there was portions of that design that they had basically said they weren't sure if they could meet, which is why we issued the stop work, because it was tied to the zoning. Therefore, we weren't meeting your approved plans. We needed them to straighten that away before we move forward. As far as the construction end, they demonstrated or stated that they could still do that. They looked into it. I think the stop work was about 10, 11 days that they had to produce the information. We were still pressing them, even though we allowed them to go back to work to say the soils are still the concern. They then moved into doing the testing that they needed to demonstrate that. We met with DEP. I think there was probably about 30 people on the phone call this morning. And that was really bringing us up to speed of where they were on the soil testing. The short of it is everything they've done so far, and I think today they wrapped up, they were either almost double what the assumption was from the original design or more. And that includes going through and ripping the soil at least 20 inches deep in all the areas they are able to do that. When I say that, there's some areas where they encountered rock where we didn't want them to rip 20 inches deep and then create that issue on the site. But they are still doing at least an 8-inch till in the amended soils. So on top of the topsoil, they have spread, which they say is anywhere from, they claim 8 to 12 inches. But on the site where they will be tilling, they're doing at least 8 inches and adding sand and organic material. That will be their amended soil. There's about 106 acres of that they have to do that on. And we're still waiting for the final reports to come back for both the soil testing as well as that overall plan. But they have shown during the meeting that they are able to continue with that. So that really avoids the stop work order again that we had strictly for that compliance with the approved plan. So that's kind of a summary of where we're at there. DEP brought up several things that after their site inspection from June 9th, there wasn't a lot of compliance shown or provided, so they started showing some of that. I was really pushing one of the things I haven't seen is there's some grass coming on the site, but where there's not, stabilizing that area, getting grass to grow or whatever in the meantime until the permanent solution comes in. They're working towards that, but DEP pushed the same issue. So I think on our end, we're looking at the end of the week to have total compliance with what we're requesting. DEP tends to be a little more lenient on their deadlines. I don't think they're doing their inspection until next week for what their report is, but we're looking for more compliance sooner than that. That's where we are on the soils and some of the concerns we have with the design and whether they can or can't comply. We also issued a notice of violation, Jeff can speak to for the weeds.
Yeah, we had issued the final notice of violation. I posted that Friday, a week ago. I think that would have been the 4th. We were given 7 days to bring the property into compliance. I was out Saturday evening, took pictures, and they're still in violation, or they were at that point in time. And we issued citations today. So I did see an email from Scott Luttrell today saying that everything has been cut now as of 3-4 o'clock this afternoon. I have not been out to the property since. I haven't had time to see if in fact they have complied with that. But the citations were dropped off at Judge Greth's office around 2:30, 3 o'clock today.
So we're looking for compliance with that. Again, they were asking how that ties in with the rest of the site work. That's your property maintenance ordinance, so it really didn't tie into a stop work order. There's the violations and penalties that go along with that separate from the site construction. I leave that to Jeff on that, but I know there was other concerns that came in and we discussed it with them. One being the complaint about a skid loader being back on the road. We weren't there when it occurred. I did find out in talking with them that they do have a skid loader with the brush on the front that they run up down the road once or twice a day just to make sure they're keeping it clean of the stone. I saw the skid loader, didn't see it operating, but that may be one of the reasons that it's there, but I can't say that it wasn't stopped in the road or not. We're trying to keep up on if there's something coming in, trying to talk to them about it and having them address that. Again, DEP did have concerns at pushing for compliance, but there's just not a lot behind it right now. But we'll see on that.
Backing up a little bit, are you confident that they'll be able to meet the infiltration goals?
What they showed today, as long as their reports back that up, they're at least, or they're greater than what the assumptions were written in the report. So we'll have to pair that with what happens when they start tilling the site. I mean, that's test holes. They're doing 20-some test holes on the site. That's a good number, but it's a large site, so we'll be there observing it as it goes to make sure that it's
Because that would be
reaching everything.
problematic if we had a worse situation than we started with.
Agreed.
It doesn't look encouraging so far.
I think we really stressed that they were trying to push back on the 20-inch ripping. But,
Well,
I mean,
that's
they
key.
all but admitted they compacted more than what the details showed, so it's required. I mean, they have to get in there, rip it, and then they till another 8 inches again on top of the ripping, so.
Absolutely key.
So it's been very challenging for them to comply or even do what they say. Now we're at this point, they have reports of stuff. What, and maybe Chris is an answer for you, what happens if they do not comply? They don't rip it, they don't do, I mean, does that just come out of their escrow and we do it? Or what's our guarantee that this happens?
Well, there's a couple of different ways it can happen. There is an escrow for the construction. I don't know if that escrow included costs of ripping, though. I mean, it's typically it's the construction. And, there was a lot of money for amended soils, but I don't know what the breakdown on that was. So hypothetically, that's a possibility. There's also notices of violation of the saldo. The the subdivision land development ordinance. And if you don't comply with the conditions of the permit, you know, approval of the subdivision land development ordinance, you can be subject to fines, $500 a day. We'd have to issue an NOV and take them to the district justice to get those fines. There's also the zoning compliance, because as Scott said, this infiltration requirement is part of the zoning regulations. And if they don't comply with those regulations, then they can be subject to an NOV under the zoning ordinance and, you know, be subject to $500 a day fines for violating the zoning ordinance. So there are at least 3 different ways we could go at it if they don't comply with what is required by the plan approval.
And how do we judge that?
Which portion of that?
That they've met those rates?
I mean, that's,
Are we taking their word for it?
well, what we're doing is having that third-party company come out. The name is Monarch Incorporated.
They're the ones that are doing the testing.
They're the ones separately coming in doing the testing. They're actually doing it for their own purposes at different levels, just to see what's occurring. 8-inch, 10-inch, some 12, but all of them at least a 20-inch, which is what we're most concerned about, because that's what we're requiring to go to. But that is something that, as they're doing it, we have spot check. Again, they've kind of been rushing to get that in as much as they can. But really, it is the infiltration rates that they're taking, certifying.
So it is a
They're
third
putting their
party
seal
that's
on.
doing that.
It is. And it is different than the original. The original was Kinley Horn. The engineering company had somebody separate. They're coming in and doing this now.
Well, someone has to be accountable for that.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, yes, that company is certifying those results.
Right.
But again, that comes hand in hand with when they start ripping the soils to see what's going on and how that's.
And some
How that
sort
goes.
is going to be absolutely crucial. It's going to make it work.
I just want to make sure we're protected, 'cause I don't think we take that seriously.
Yeah, I think we need to look at procedures and where they land on that end of it too.
Yeah, they seem to have a bit of a communications problem. The right hand doesn't know the left hand, so.
Typically, you have the periodic escrow requests for drawdown. They haven't done that. I think they're trying to make sure everything goes smoothly before they do so. I think there's reason to hesitate on that anyway, to what extent you could. But yeah, they're moving into that soil ripping and starting that to at least look through a couple rows. The end of this week, I think it is, somewhere around Thursday, Friday. But once they start, then they'll start getting into the full site. So I don't think them attempting to do all the ripping and all of that is a worry. I think they're gonna do that. It's just a matter of following through and trying to get up and running. It's the big concern.
Of course, the other big issue is the grass. Bad
Yeah.
precedents. Keep an eye on that for me. Because we can't be giving, they can't be issuing NOVs to other people in the neighborhood.
With that being
People
said,
drive by there and they go, hey, what's going on here, guys?
okay, but let's clarify one thing with that. With that being said, I think we need to hold them to the same standard that we hold everybody else.
Exactly.
And I think what I'm looking for is compliance in the area, I'd say maybe a little bit past the main discharge from the site, down towards the end of the guide rail. But if I look, as you go up the rise a little bit, on the left-hand side, they have a bank that has higher growth on it. But I also see that identical growth both across the street and also down the street farther. So we are not issuing notices of violation to those property owners. So I think I feel that I don't want to issue an NOD to them for having that same growth in the eastern end of the property. Or
Which
southern.
is technically a waterway, that's what you're referring to, the waterway.
No, even closer to Fleetwood,
Okay.
you know, even onto, you know, the Walker property and down farther. So there are areas that have that same type of vegetation. You know, they're active farms that we're not going after for that. But I think on the upper end towards the substation, it's a little bit different animal there.
Yeah, that's really part of the facility.
Correct.
Yeah.
So that area, you know, I don't want to see high weeds that, if there's a utility pole laying on the ground or the silt socks, I think that all should be trimmed down.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's a guy going out there with a, you know, weed whacker, how he's doing it, but it needs to be done.
Yeah.
And along the guide rail where it's growing up through it, it needs to be cleared.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to
Clarify
clarify.
perception.
Correct.
I can say that they've gone to great lengths to mow just over the weekend they were working on it, and they were weed whacking around the fence and stuff. They're really trying to get everything down.
I understand they are.
The state has to maintain the guardrails. They always did, but they're not doing it. They used to spray it to kill it, but they're not doing it.
Okay.
Talk to the state. Yeah.
State's not great on cutting weeds anymore.
No,
Anymore.
bring it up too much.
They would tell you there's no budget. I heard that once, I heard it 100 times. We don't have a budget.
But I do want that end of the property, I want it looking good. And I think that is in their best interest, and that's what
That's what I tried to convey to them last week when we met.
oh, you should have heard the conversation I had with them the week before, but,
Yeah.
didn't go over too well.
Yeah. I tried to tell them it's in your best interest.
Tell them I don't care what's on the back of the property. Do what's up front.
Yeah, that's one
Let's use some common sense.
Yeah.
To kind of bring it to a head, we're waiting on their reports for the soils. The final report, we've seen some of the results. Some of the report we're waiting on from them. Technically, they are changing the soil amendment. That was what was discussed at the meeting, so the DEP in our office, Gary was on the call as well, just to make sure everybody was on board. We were hesitant to give an answer until we knew whether or not DEP was going to approve it. They're holding the permit, we wanted to see how they approached it, as well as see the soil results before we start amending anything. DEP was open to both the 20-inch tilling and the results, as well as the change to the soil amendment. For a reason, I mean, they back up that there is a reason that they can do so, and it does work out. I mean, again, as I said, I've left that soil amendment and the review of that stormwater design to Gary. And first glance, cursory review, he said it looks good, finish it up and send it to us. So we're waiting on that. They're starting to work towards that tilling in between the solar panels right now. And that, we just have to keep going. But one of the questions DEP had, and I don't think they were 100% clear on this, at least the person that was on the meeting, they did take into consideration that there's about a 6-7 foot pass that the panels will be at, even when they do this work. So when they did their design, they accounted for not having that 6-7 foot pass, and they're only doing the, say, 7 or 8 foot between the panels. So it looks like they're trying to till the whole area, even underneath. They will for the amended soils, but the tilling and the ripping is going to be in between the panels for that infiltration. That was ultimately the design. It came up as a question with DEP, so just to clarify, if anybody sees that, that's the intent of the design. But again, we're watching it as they move forward. So.
I think they should just be clear that we're not gonna settle for anything less than the intended results under any circumstances. Because up to this point, they have tried to push us in every direction. And it's not happening. And we will use every ounce of leverage that we have to make sure it's what they agreed on in the first place.
Understood.
We're not looking for anything above and beyond, we just want to what they originally agreed to.
I just got one question. The 20-inch ripping thing, was that set in stone from day one, or where did that number come from? I mean, that is really deep.
That
We have a
was,
ripper, I know we can't even go that deep.
that was kind of the concern is they were backing off from the 20-inch rip,
Yeah, because our wires are down there.
but it was their design. It was,
They said they can go to,
the designer put that on the drawing and said in a situation where the compaction is heavy,
right,
then it needs to be the 20-inch rip. And ultimately, when they graded out the site, they graded it and then they added the topsoil back. So when they rolled that, they put 8 inches of topsoil back on it, there was already compaction. Even if it was only 2 inches, the heavy compaction is considered 8 or greater. So that's why it was, well, guys, this is your design, your construction. Now your detail shows the 20-inch rip. Could there be consideration there? Possibly, but again, they had it on there for a reason and.
I just wanted to, that's awful deep.
Yeah, yeah, it was the original design and what the safe answer was if there was heavy compaction.
We're not asking any more than what they agreed to
Okay.
from the rip, from the beginning.
Yeah, the contractor had a lot of pushback on us saying that it's the township's request to go 20 town, and we kept saying, this is your design. This was the design that you guys got approved and
Yeah, we didn't design it.
brought it through, so.
Yeah, well, they created that problem when they compacted it. So they want to make sure they get that hard pan broken up or the water's not going to go down there.
Right. And
So the goal is to
Bring it up
get,
to some point.
get the infiltration rates that they agreed to, so. But you're right, that's deep.
Especially when it counts.
Any other questions on that part?
As far as I'm concerned. Everything else?
The Southview permit after the meeting, we put the information together. There was some paperwork you had to have and clearances. We got that. The meeting was the 10th. I think the 17th, DEP issued a letter that said we're accepting the emergency permits. And we got it to them, I think, in the next day or two. And they asked for a little bit more information, but they issued that. That covered from where the worst of it was, from Southview up to the first couple of budding properties. So that permit is in hand with the township, and I think the work, I can't speak to if it's complete, done in that area for what the permit allows, but.
Yeah, I would say it's probably complete. I don't know how much more we're gonna get involved with there, but all of the debris that was in the creek bed is out. We reinforced the stream bank and just have to draw the line somewhere for.
Yeah, they did a real nice job. They covered the stream bank and they got all the junk out of there. But that whole area is gonna be problematic. And it's not gonna get any better until basically the whole stream is dredged from above Park Avenue all the way down to, well, below Timothy. Because there is no existing stream there. It's all filled in. But that's really not our deal, I don't think, because it's all private property. I mean, we did what affected our road crossings, except for Timothy, which is completely different. Ball and wax.
The one thing I would add, and, oh, no, go ahead, sorry.
We did open the waterway coming down to the box culvert now. Didn't do much of the Timothy though, other than just clear the water path out.
Yeah.
But that is gonna be an ongoing problem. That is a mess. That is just a mess. I mean, there's no defined stream bank at all. It's just, it's level. So you get a heavy rain like we're gonna have tonight, that water has no place to go. It's gonna flood down, anything downstream is gonna be underwater.
Depends how much it rains.
It depends, exactly. But you
You
get
can get a heavy rain and it'll come up a little bit. And within hours, it goes back down.
right, you get sustained 3 or
You
4
get
inches.
sustained heavy rain like we did on July 9th, it's a rager.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, but the real question is, I mean, I've lived there since 2002. And it used to come up, and I remember, I don't know, 7, 8 years ago, that thing was jet black. That's topsoil coming off. Now, in the last 5 years, when we get real heavy rains like that, it's sand, it's rock,
Sand
it's everything that they dug out up there. I mean, it's behind my garage where there used to be a 3-foot channel earlier this summer. I almost drive my pickup across it.
It's very interesting. It's
And there's
river rock.
nothing,
It's
there's
sizable
fill.
round river rock. It's all coming from up the hill somewhere.
Somewhere, somebody upstream
Yeah,
did something
yeah, something.
that's changed, whether it was, I think after the sewer, I saw a little bit of change, and I don't know if something that the contractors did up there, or if the railroad, but around that time, you started seeing more water. It used to mainly come down that stream, but now when it rains on Pleasant Hill Road, you'll get more water coming down, like a decent amount running down the shoulder on usually the right side heading towards Park.
And it's a while after too.
Oh, yeah.
But it's been since 2020, now we get all this sand and rock, and it's not just small rock,
Oh, that's big.
it's big stuff. And I don't know where it's coming
But
from,
that-
but it fills
That
it in.
material has now, it's level. A good part of the stream bank doesn't exist anymore. Hundreds of tons of this material came down. Now, we cleaned it out. How many loads did we take out of there last year or 2 years ago? A lot.
We all day.
Yeah, I mean, it was an unbelievable amount, just to go, what do we go, 150 foot?
Yeah.
And now we just did the same thing again, but we just took the material and moved it to where it washed out from before.
Did you straighten it all? Or just-
No, we did, and we buffered it with block. Yeah, it's gonna take a bit now to wash it.
It'll work on it slowly over time.
Oh, it will.
It'll eat behind your bin blocks that you put up there behind Noel's house, and then eventually it'll come back.
Yeah,
So-
ideally.
I mean, those 3 guys that were here last meeting, I mean, you obviously satisfied them enough because they're not here. You know, they're not pushing anything, but I still,
We're the only beneficiary of what we did there. You know?
well, I understand that. But the one guy said, well, why is water still going in that basement? I said, well, if you don't understand geology, I said, all that soil was disturbed the whole way down to the foundation. Just because they dug it out and put it over there, I said, it's all heavy rock and sand. I said, it's gonna take, months,
Yeah,
a year, till it compacts 8 feet down and then stops the water from going into that basement of that house. I said, you'll just have that forever.
Yeah, when that water comes down there, it comes with a fury, but it's washing rocks this big.
Big.
Because we had
Big
buffered
rocks.
the side of that, before it went into the box, and it took all that water away.
Took a lot of it. It's down in my backyard.
Yeah,
So it's in the stream bed. It's in the stream bed, and I just look at it. And, you know, part of you guys coming out and looking was because the guy down the street that went in with a skid loader and removed all the rock from his from in his property, which I asked about in the last meeting. He's like, well, it's something that I don't touch that stream. I do as little as I have to because
Yeah, that came from way up above.
Yeah, it's,
It's a lot.
I don't know how you approach something like that.
What are we gonna do about Timothy?
So, real quick here, just from the discussion, the short term, talking with Dean Druckenmiller today, I think there is, I don't know what kind of money was put into this rehabilitation that was done just based on this, but there's up to $10,000 that you can claim and submit for with Conservation District. They have that alone for these kind of situations, so if you have record of what was spent and what was done, you can put in for that and they will use.
Robbie?
Jen was compiling all the slips and stuff, and I don't know if she has it all totaled or anything just yet, but
I
she
have
has a
not.
pretty good handle on what we spent
Did
there.
you ever get anywhere with UGI and that gas line?
I have a meeting with them on this Thursday for Timothy.
That's the biggie.
That's the big.
How deep is the gas line?
I mean, I think that's your big thing there is for what the gas line is, and as I understand it, you kind of maxed out with the 2 pipes as much as you could do without disturbing it or
So if we have to disturb, we have to move the gas line down? Is that something we can work out with them?
I think that's,
The guy I spoke with from UGI, he made the comment that if their gas line is in the way, they move it. I don't know if that's a charge to the township, but I'll find that out on Thursday.
Perfect. Me.
But that's the key. I don't think we can have anything smaller at Timothy than what we have coming across.
We need to know
Is
that.
is it gas line inside or outside the right?
It's in the road.
Probably in-
is it in the road, the gas?
It's in the right.
Apparently, the gas line goes right down the middle of the road.
Okay, well, that's good. If it's inside the right of way, we can make a move it if it's in the way.
Perfect.
Well, we thought we'd try
Problem
the
solved.
middle approach first.
No, but I think, and we gotta do something because it washed out Timothy on the top side.
Yeah, so I'm just thinking here, we went after the south view. I know the waters are still going. I guess DEP, if there's a reason, we can't change the culvert or upgrade that at this moment, but if there's something, the road restoration and bank within an area of Timothy, maybe submit another emergency permit for that. I have, basically, it's basically changed some of the names, and I know they're getting less than what we submitted. Just quick
Well, we need
throw it at
to
them
do
and see if
something
they'll take
sooner
it.
rather than later on Timothy.
Yeah, I don't even know that you can drive on the side of the road to
Yes.
stabilize that at all.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the edges, it's bad.
If we don't do something soon, we should cut that out, compact some stone in there. Because it's
I
just
was
gonna
I
collapse.
was just gonna backfill with blacktop.
There's a blacktop. I mean, I hate to dump.
I mean, we could throw another
Black hole,
emergency
we do a
permit
black
at them and
hole,
see if it's, if it covers at least the restoring and kind of establishing a little bit more what that,
Well,
the drainage area was. I don't know if that'll help or not. I'm kind of just saying that as it's an option. You could recoup the cost from the conservation district as well, and
Yeah.
shot them.
Yeah, I would do it, get the cost back for that. But our end goal is putting a box there, right?
Absolutely. Nothing else will work.
Nothing else, we should have done.
Especially with all the foreign matter that comes
Yeah,
out.
we should have done that first.
Yeah. And I think the reason they didn't is because of the gas line.
But it's in the right of way, if we can move it.
Right.
Or they can move it.
The only other thing I'll say is Dean brought up the fact that DEP, if the stream is within 50 feet or causing a problem with an actual residential house, it can't be any kind of a storage area or that. They just came out, he said, about 2 weeks ago, where they will do a study. They will fund the cost of rehabilitating the stream back to where it was and get rid of that curb. The big asterisk next to that is he said that can take up to a year when they go through that process. So that's a long-term option if you want to. At a minimum, I'll have him send me the information, I'll forward it. But
How does that work when you're on private property?
this is,
Does the
Property owner, be the applicant?
I'm not sure. It was very limited. He said they just released this 2 to 3 weeks ago, and he was gonna forward me information. He hasn't yet. Just talked to him.
Because I'm sure this goes to maybe a dozen different properties.
Yeah.
I
So
mean,
from the railroad tracks all the way down to Pleasant Hill.
yeah, actually, it was a little creek.
Willow Creek.
On the south side of Southview, I mean, you guys cut on that tree, but then it was never taken out. And that's a big curve. And that's been an issue the last, in 2020 and in 2023. So, I mean, if it takes a year to get there, we cross our fingers and hope that we don't get big rains until then. And if we can straighten that, I think that's,
Well,
I mean, it curves pretty good on my property, but when I bought on 319, there's big slabs of blacktop that were dumped. I never put them in there, but that's on the bank there on the curve, and it doesn't erode there. I mean, I don't get any erosion on my property. I get fill from upstream, but I don't get erosion on it.
I'll forward you that information, and if there's reason to.
The immediate action item is Timothy. That's gonna take something.
And then the rest, the long-term will be good,
Yeah,
especially if they're gonna fund it.
So I
That
think,
should be their job, right? We can't do nothing with the creeks. That's where there's a problem.
boggles my mind.
That's what they should be doing. Maybe they'll give us a suggestion, because they don't have any enforcement.
we might as well, we'll throw Timothy as the emergency permit. We'll get some of that cleared up, and I'll talk to Robbie what expense makes up for that, and then
Well, I think once we get the determination of the gas line, then we can figure out what it's gonna take to do that. We get some budget numbers
Yeah,
together.
I think you gotta put a design together and show where you need them to move the gas line, take it to UGI and get them to sign off on it.
That's assuming they know where it is.
just to be clear, that the emergency permit will help stabilize, get back what kind of got destroyed now, and then it'll have to go into the design, but.
So you guys designed that?
Yeah, we can, honestly, probably some area involved in, gets excited about
Give
it.
us something good.
Well, he did the first one, so he
Yeah, he did.
understands. Tell him that one didn't work. Yeah, because I don't see any reason that you could possibly have anything smaller than that stuff that.
No.
Is out to you.
It's not like it's gonna decrease as it goes downstream.
It's just gonna meet that.
The last item I have there is the street work. The last time we released in the neighborhood of 250,000 for it, but retained around 13,000. So they completed the punch list items. Generally speaking, they did that. There was some back and forth on some items, but at this time, what we've asked for them to complete with the contract is complete. The only money remaining is the payment you see here is $16,369.82 to Alan Myers. That'll bring it to $266,702.79. It's about 14,000 more than it was for the original contract award. But if you remember, I think we're somewhere in the neighborhood of 50,000 less than budget when we have this thing awarded. But right now, the recommendation is for authorizing payment of $16,369.82 to Alan Myers.
And that additional, what was it? $10,000, that was additional material?
There was a request for 5,000 for a rolled curb that they installed. We asked them to do it with a paver. They chose to come back and do it after they installed the base. And we're trying to recoup that mobilization cost, and there's just no reason to budge on that. It wasn't discussed prior to payment, or prior to the work. So, per our contract alone, we can't really authorize payment of that, and that's not included.
I was just wondering if we'd have gotten anywhere with that, so
Yeah, we told them we wanted
that was the right
to
answer.
be able to pay that.
Robbie, any reason why we shouldn't?
No, I think everything's pretty good.
You don't seem too excited about that.
Overall, paperwork was a little disappointing this year, all around, but
I thought so too.
I agree. There was a heck of a lot less. I guess we weighed out.
Maybe we got what we paid.
Maybe we did. It was quite a bit less than what we were
It
anticipating.
was,
I mean, it's,
wasn't cheap, it was a four. It was a four.
so
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it. All in favor? Then we just learn for next year. We gotta add something in the language, or
I don't, I mean, a lot of it's quality, craftsmanship.
It's workmanship.
It's not there. I don't know.
Patchwork is just not the forte, and it really showed.
Yeah.
all right.
I'm done.
So
Unless you
noted.
have a question.
Okay, Chris.
You have a copy of our report. There's no new action on this for tonight. I know you were going over some of these with Michelle last month.
Yep.
Just some of the things that happened this month. There was a 391 Park property was supposed to go to sheriff's sale on August 11th, but that has been rolled over until October. So we're going to continue to wait for the disposition of that. I still expect the mortgage company to take the property. There's another 2 properties on the list. The 895 Pleasant Hill, and so there's 2 different accounts for that. It's 2 different properties, but they're 2 different accounts. Anyway, that property was taken back by the mortgage company at a sheriff's sale. So we don't immediately get paid when the mortgage company takes the property. We'll get paid when they resell the property. So when there are proceeds, we'll get.
So who pays the bill till then?
Well, the bank should be billed for those charges on an ongoing basis, but they probably won't pay them. In which case, it'll all get paid when they resell both the stuff that was owed when they took the property, plus what accrues during the time that the bank.
So how must we update the liens every time, or how does that happen? Like if it's there, it must be.
Well, our liens are updated through the time that it went to the sheriff's sale. So if they don't pay, then we should again update those liens as the charges accrue until they eventually dispose of it.
Okay.
But typically, they will go through, the buyer will get title insurance and the title company will contact Jan and get a payoff, and we'll get everything.
So even if the lien's not updated, they can't.
We'll get everything we're owed.
Okay.
I mean, the only time we've had an issue is where a property owner did a private sale and, there's no title insurance. And we won't ask for a payoff, and so his charges won't pay, but that's very unusual. So anyway, and that's just FYI, I don't have anything for you to take action on tonight on that. The next item is just on condemnation actions. Again, these were the cleanups on the Richmond Town sewer. And there will be a notice published in the Reading Eagle by the end of this week indicating our intention to pay funds into court. 20 days after that is published, I can ask the court for an order directing the proprietary to accept the funds from the township based on the appraised value. So I will be looking for a check from the township sometime in September, but I don't need that to be issued until the September meeting.
Gotcha.
And where's that money go?
That's gonna just be paid into the court. The court will hold it until 7 years passes, and then it'll go to the state of Pennsylvania.
Perfect.
Then it's done.
It's done.
Yeah, our work is done. Now, some relative of the people who owned the property 100 years ago might still show up, and they have to go to court and ask for that money to be paid to them, and they have to show that they're entitled to it. That hasn't happened for all the years since that sewer was installed. I don't expect it to happen now, but hypothetically, it could happen. There's a couple of things I should have asked to put on here, and that is this Fleetwood Borough zoning appeal. I'd like to talk to the board about that. I don't know if you're aware of that. That was on the solar panels that the borough wanted to install in the sewer plant. So I'd ask for you to consider an amendment to the agenda to add that topic. Would you be willing to add that to the agenda?
Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
Let's make a motion. Or what is the new sunshine rules?
Well, I'm saying that it's a time-sensitive matter because there's a deadline for the township to take action. If you.
But I mean, let's make a motion.
Yeah, we should have a
I'll
motion
make a motion.
to amend the agenda.
All in favor?
Aye. Okay. So the borough has filed an appeal of the zoning hearing board decision. In the normal course, in a situation like this, I would ask the board of supervisors to authorize us to intervene in the county court case in order to protect the position of the township in the event that if the county court decides against the zoning hearing board, if the township has intervened and become party to the case, the township would have the ability to appeal the adverse decision of the county court to the Commonwealth Court. So just as a matter of procedure, I routinely recommend that the township do that in order to keep that option available. In this case, I'm not sure if you want to do that. I don't know if you have a position on what the zoning hearing board did in this case, but hypothetically, you may not wish to defend the zoning hearing board's decision. So if you don't wish to defend the zoning hearing board's decision, it would not be necessary for the township to intervene in that county court case. So, I don't know what you want to do, but this is the time to talk about it and decide if you would wish to intervene, because there's a limited time for us to file what's called a notice of intervention. If you use notice of intervention within 30 days of the county court appeal being filed, it's an automatic intervention. If you wait longer than that, we would have to petition the court and seek court approval to intervene and join the case. So I'm not recommending that you intervene, but this is the meeting at which you should consider.
Well, in one case, on one hand, it probably, I would like to support the zoning hearing. On the other hand, I don't know, but intervening, it just keeps your options open at this point. You're gonna mix the motions.
I was not in support of the zoning hearing board's decision. We made our recommendation.
We did.
I think there was a lot of public pressure there. The purpose of the zoning hearing, I mean, the regulation that is part of this is, I think, more residential than commercial. So it's a front yard, backyard thing. This is the sewer plant. They're gonna be able to put some solar panels in, but just not to the extent that they wanted to.
Yeah, I was by no means against that, but I was just bringing up.
I know, I think I think the appeal hearing will go to the county and they'll make the decision.
Yes, if you intervene, I think that certainly hypothetically, you could indicate your position against the zoning hearing board or in favor of the zoning hearing board. But if you don't intervene, you don't have to take any position.
Right. We can just let them make the decision like the zoning hearing board did.
But the consequence of that would be that there would be no one in a position to take a further appeal if the decision of the county court goes against the zoning. So I just want you to be aware of that consequence.
Yeah, it gives you a course of action one way or the other.
Yeah, because under Pennsylvania rules, the zoning hearing board is not allowed to appeal a county court decision. An applicant to the zoning hearing board can appeal to the higher court, but the zoning hearing board can't appeal to a higher court. So if the decision of the county court goes against the zoning hearing board, that's the end of the case. So unless the township has intervened.
But maybe we should just let them settle it.
Let's say that.
Yeah, I'm not in favor of that. In this specific case.
Okay.
In this specific case, as long as it doesn't affect us down the road.
Well, it's.
Not in this specific case down the road, I mean, in other cases down the road. We always have the option,
You always have.
case by case.
Yes.
I make the motion that we don't intervene.
A second.
All in favor? Aye.
Right, the other thing that I saw when I got here tonight was a letter from First County Planning Commission about a comprehensive plan issue in Orland Township. Now, I'm familiar with that because I'm the one that's pushing this with the county planning commission. What happened here, and I'm just gonna take a moment of your time, if you don't mind, to talk about it, in the event that you chose to express an opinion, because what the county planning commission is doing is soliciting input from municipalities, and I guess they sent this to every municipality in the county. It's a property owner, a farmer, whose land is in the, well, their property is actually divided between the agricultural zone and the residential zone in Onaway Township. And on the county's comprehensive plan, the area that's in the residential zone is designated as future growth. So this, it's actually a couple of siblings who are the owners of the property. If you ever heard of the Adams family, they were dairy farmers. They're now renting the ground out because they're actually all elderly. But they want to preserve their farm. So the part that was zoned agriculture and was not in the county's future growth area, they already applied to the county farmland preservation program, and they have approved with that portion. The remaining portion of their farm, they would also like to put into preservation, but under the rules of the county, you're not allowed to get into county farmland preservation if your land is designated for future growth, because they're trying to protect areas for development, and not let it be preserved. So the board of supervisors in Lonnie were requested by the Adams family to rezone this land from residential to ag, and the township agreed to do that because they've had several agricultural tracts that have been rezoned for development or warehouses going in. Supervisors felt like maybe this was a good time to put some ground the other way. So they agreed to do that. Then the county said, well, your comprehensive plan has to also say that it's agricultural use, so the county, or the township amended its comprehensive plan. And then the county said, well, you also have to get us to amend the county comprehensive plan. So there's been hurdle after hurdle, and the township is still trying to make it possible for the Adamses to preserve their farm. So the latest hurdle is this county comprehensive plan. The county planning commission is recommending against changing the comprehensive plan for several reasons. One is that this land is close to the sewer lines in Onaway Township. They say there's a crisis of not enough new housing in Berks County, and they don't like the precedent of municipalities asking the county to tweak the county comprehensive plan in between their every 10-year cycle of updated comp plan. So they had multiple reasons. I'm still hopeful that the county commissioners will not follow the recommendation of their planning commission on this. So if you wanted to comment on this, you could do so in response to the solicitation for comment that you received by email from David Hunter at the County Planning Commission. My recommendation would be that you submit a comment supporting the change in the county comprehensive plan. But that's up to you. You don't have to do it.
My thought,
Can you show me where it is here?
Yeah, okay. So all of these are owned by the Adams family, A, B, C, D, and E. The letters are deeds, so there's a deed A, a deed B, a deed C, a deed D, a deed E. Everything on the north side of Ida Red Road, and this is Ida Red Road, was zoned agriculture and was not in the county's future growth area. Everything south of Ida Red Road, these areas, were originally zoned for development, but the township has changed that. But they are still shown as future growth on the county comprehensive plan.
I thought the preservation plan was to protect endangered properties that were endangered of development.
Well, this is certainly endangered of development.
Absolutely.
So here's my personal experience with this. We have a farm, some of the best farm ground probably in Berks County. Would love to preserve it. But because in the counties, future growth development, we can't do that. We do not have to preserve ground that's not desirable to develop. We have to preserve ground that's desirable to develop. That's what it's trying to protect.
That was his intent.
That's what its intent. We don't need stuff up, I mean, just my opinion. If it's not pressured to be developed, we don't have to be pressured to protect it. But some of this ground is just getting swallowed up and the county changes or can change future growth. And I get where they're at with needing more housing. And I just think in this township, we're prone to preserve ag land. And I think if you have somebody that wants to preserve ag land, I personally can support it, but I don't know as a township, you know, what we have to say or do or where our opinion should be as a township. I just don't see any downside to preserving more farmland if the owners want to do that and it gives them the ability to do it. I don't know. Personally, for me, I think it's a great idea. But speaking as a township leader,
I have the same opinion.
I don't know how it affects the counties and our, you know, the planning commission. I don't know how much input, I mean, it has been redesigned, but I don't know how much, we probably had the ability to have say when they redo it. I don't know that we've had, but I think it definitely should be on the radar the next time, big time.
Well, it has consequences, and this is an example that these county plans have consequences. If you look at what's happening on that Route 61 corridor, there's been a lot of land taken out of agriculture. And, you know, like I said, these are elderly siblings. They know that when they're gone, there's a high likelihood that the next generation will just look for money. So they're trying to do something while they still control it.
And it has a huge impact on them, what they're giving them financially. What they're gonna get from the county to preserve that is a drop in the bucket compared to what they could get to develop it.
Because it is in the path of development.
It is in the path of development, you can see that. It's development right next door.
So I made a presentation. If you want to take action on this, you have to amend the agenda to add this. Again, it's a time-sensitive matter. It's appropriate to amend the agenda to add it, but only if you want to consider taking any action.
When the county does their plan, we have input, I'm sure.
They notify you that they're updating the plan, and you have the opportunity to review and comment. You know, I don't know to what extent you have exercised that opportunity in the past.
And I don't recall what we have in my tenure here.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen it. Now, you know, and
It's
they,
only every 10 years.
Every 10 years.
Yes, it's like this,
so they also should be
trying to work off of your comp plan. So,
So that's probably my perspective on this one. If the township is approved,
the township has already amended their zoning ordinance and amended their comp plan. And it's actually a joint comp plan. So Leesburg Borough also had to amend their comp plan, which they have done. So, the county comp plan is now inconsistent with the joint comp plan of on Long and Leesburg.
well, then I think I would like to support the township. This. And I think that's what we're giving our support to. They want to change it. They have changed it.
Well, if you wish, what I would suggest is a motion to have Jen send a letter to the County Planning Commission indicating that Richmond Township supports farmland preservation and supports Illinois Township's request.
I'll make that motion, but Jen sent a letter.
You gotta amend the agenda.
Okay, I'll make a motion to amend the agenda to get this topic on, because it's time sensitive. All in favor? Aye. Now,
Now, I can make the motion.
Yep.
Have Jen send the letter stating our support for the farmland preservation.
all in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Number 5. Step back, motion to approve the Envirep maintenance agreement. We do this every year. Let's see it.
I looked it over, it looks like it's only up.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. No miscellaneous business. Roadmaster's report. Anything to add out of the ordinary, Robin?
Max Tony has agreed to buy our old mowing tractor. They had their meeting, I want to say last week. They agreed on the price of $18,000. I'm not sure. Chris could probably help if we need to draft some type of letter up stating that we agreed on that price.
There should be a document. It can be very simple.
We already approved it, so.
They'll say,
Do you have it? Is it satisfactory?
yeah, that's fine. Yep, that's good.
And the only other exciting news is the truck that we ordered maybe a year or two ago is finally, I don't know how to say it, it's going through the process now. We should see it in 2024 at some point.
So how did they, price-wise, where's that at?
It stayed the same.
That's amazing.
Actually, it went up $600.
Huh? $600 is nothing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Is that because it's through co-stores or?
I'm not really sure. The only reason it went up is because I added 2 things. But, so if I would have added those 2 things, it would have stayed the exact same price. So,
A cup holder and
yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, that's
unheard of.
that is unheard of, especially in the trucking world right now. It's just incredibly challenging for pricing of these stuff. All right, thank you, Robbie. What about, the body of the whole thing's on track?
I'm gonna, I think sometime next week, I'm gonna meet with the inputs, go over all of the plans that we have, had spec'd out before finalizing. I did that with Berman last week, and,
Just
they're
make
gonna
sure.
get everything on order.
All right. Secretary report. Payment of the bills.
Okay, general fund, we had check numbers 11037 to 11092, including EFTs for $228,797.67.
Make a motion that we pay it.
Second. All in favor? Aye.
State fund, we had check 2123 for $200,000.
Make a motion that we pay it.
All in favor? Aye.
Light fund, we had checked 2162 for $744.71.
I'll make a motion that we pay it.
All in favor? Aye.
Sewer fund, we had check numbers 3106 to 3124, including EFTs for $40,743.30.
I'll make a motion that we pay it.
All in favor? Aye.
Walnut Town Fire Escrow, check number 2166 for $741.
I'll make a motion that we pay it.
All in favor? Aye.
Virginville Fire Escrow, check numbers 2165 and 2166 for $21,719.37.
I'll make a motion that we pay it.
All in favor? Aye.
We had on the meeting on May 8th, you made the approval of removing Kilmer as our insurance agent. We went ahead and July 10th, we approved the quote, but we did not mention that we went with USI instead of going with Seltzer Group. I just wanted to make that everybody aware that we actually went with USI instead of going with the Seltzer Group at that time. Because we didn't have it on record that we changed. Perfect. To use
Do I have
USI.
to make a motion for that, Chris?
Yeah, just to clarify that.
Yeah, I make a motion that we went with, or did go with USI.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Just to review, tax collector sitting dates, this month is August 22nd, 23rd, and 24th, which is Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Now on the 24th, we are having the zoning hearing board meeting. So that will, Alex will be locking in.
Is that what? Alex will be locking out?
Yes, on the 24th, because we have the zoning hearing board meeting. And then the following week, the 29th, the 30th, and the 31st, which is again Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, she will be here as well.
I can help any of those nights. Maybe not the 29th, the 30th, the 31st, but I'm out of town, 22nd, 23rd, 24th. So we need some for the 22nd and 23rd.
22nd, bro. 23rd, 24th.
Well, you don't need the 24th, just the 23rd, so we should put it down for the 23rd.
I got the 23rd.
I'll take the 22nd.
You got the 23rd, I got the 23rd.
I think I do the 30th and the 31st. I don't think I do the 29th. I think I'm trapped. Huh. I'm traveling the 29th also. I can do the 30th, one day out of 6. I mean the 31st. No. I'll wait. I can do the 30th and the 31st.
So we need the 29th, 30th?
Yep.
Mhm.
I got that.
I'll send reminders out.
Put it on there right now.
Put 'em right on there, too. What time does it lock? What time is it's sitting here?
So,
5:45 to 7 o'clock.
And you'll let it open?
Yes.
yeah.
I included an email from Hunter Aarons from Maiden Creek Township. They are looking to have a joint comprehensive plan between the municipalities. They have asked Onalani and Leesport to enter into it as well. They have decided not to enter into it. Brian, I think you had gone to that general central tap room to discuss some stuff.
That was with the county.
Yep, a few months ago. This is basically to get everybody together for a joint comprehensive with the other townships. And
Does Fleetwood have a joint plan with anybody?
they are in this as well. Fleetwood wants to join into it as well. So they're looking to see if we have interest in it, and if so, we would just need somebody that would be the voice of the township. post on that.
The horse has already left the barn at Bean Creek Township. So will we have to commit to anything, or just, would it be just meeting to see?
Well, on the email, it basically just states, they wanna propose splitting fees amongst municipalities, breakdown could be agreed later. What they wanna do is get committees to link to the 222 corridor, just trying to get together and get the communities together and work together.
I think having all the communities that are in the same school district makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it would have made a lot of sense 20 years ago. Yes, I agree.
Okay. They're gonna have a meeting in, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, September or October, so once I get the dates, I can include everybody in and let everybody know what's going on. They just wanted to make sure that they would be.
Yes.
Glad to do
I'm
that.
thinking we should at least be involved, so we have a little bit of consistency with the school district.
As Chris would say, I concur.
Okay, I make a motion that we explore that option.
I'll second.
And the last thing I have here is Jonathan Heinzelman from the Public Relations Officer from County of Berks reached out. They have a magazine called Berks First that comes out 3 times a year. They're asking townships in Berks County to put a little short blurb, as they say, about 50 words or less about the township, whether you want to put in, this is my web page, we're having this activity the next few months, and then the actual magazine gets published and goes out to all Berks County voters.
At a cost of what?
There is no cost to us. But there's a limit of 50 words. If you want more, we can contact the actual publisher to put more in there, but he says right now it goes out to about 80,000 households.
So 50 for free, anything after that?
Correct.
Yeah, I don't know.
Put something there about bird.
But they would need, they actually have the cutoff on August 25th. They need submissions by, and then that would go out in October for their October issue.
So by the 25th, they need something.
Yes.
What do you guys think? It's about it.
Well, throw a little something together.
Come together, if you wouldn't mind, Jen, if you look what they have in there, something positive for the township.
Okay.
And just something referring anything to the website,
Right.
which I think covers everything.
Okay.
That's the best idea.
Doesn't have to be tremendous, just
Right.
direct in there. I make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Okay, that's it.
I have nothing like that. Any public participation from the floor? All right, I make a motion to adjourn. All in favor? Aye. Meeting adjourned. So I got a sewer question. If the property's never- you get to inspect the roof, you have